Knowledge is power.
You're not the only one cursed with knowledge.
Today, we're talking about the difference between appraisals and inspections because a lot of people goof it up. And the best way for me to help you understand the difference between these two things in real estate is to help you understand how they apply to something as simple as a comic book.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah, it's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
Recently, that movie Bloodshot came out. That actually comes from a comic book from when I was a kid. I collected this. This was comic book number 0 of Bloodshot when it came out. I was so excited about it, I actually picked up 2 copies of this. And you know what? I'm kind of curious. What is this comic book worth today, especially in its current condition? Just looked it up, and even though I paid $5.50 for this comic book in mint condition, it's worth over $850. And I got 2 of them, so guess what? I'm holding $1,700. Each one of these has given me a 600% annual ROI over the last 25 years. Pretty dope, right? Well, guess what? You apply that to the game of real estate and it can either mess you up or it can bring you up. So what is an appraisal? You know, a lot of people never really ask that question. There's a question that comes first. They're usually asking, what is a property worth? And you know what? The real answer to that question is what someone is willing to pay. Did you know that? Something is only worth what someone is willing to pay, like this comic book. I can tell you what I think that it's worth, but the marketplace ultimately is going to pay a certain price. The market determines what something is worth. But that's not good enough for a bank. You see, when buying a house, the bank says, I need to have a way of knowing what something is worth, not just what you're willing to pay. I don't know if you're willing to pay too much or too little. So they go to an appraiser. An appraiser is a professional licensed third party, and their job is to basically look at a house and basically determine its exact value. For example, according to Zing by Quicken Loans, they said an appraisal is an estimated market value of a home determined by a licensed appraiser. Now, there are several benefits to having an appraisal. And remember, it's usually the bank that wants it done for some specific reasons. Number 1, it's there to make sure that you can actually get approved for the mortgage. The bank wants to believe in the value of the property and they will believe a licensed appraiser. Number 2, they want to ensure that you're not paying more for the home than what it's worth. Like a bank doesn't want to say, oh, you agreed to buy this house for $300,000 and we're going to give you a loan for that. Turns out the house is worth less than half of that. The bank gets screwed and you get screwed. So an appraisal keeps that from happening. Number 3, it provides a reason to drop the sales price if the home comes in under the appraisal. Like I might agree to buy the house from you for $300,000. The appraisal comes in at $280,000. And you know what the bank says? No dice. We're not giving you a loan at $280,000. You've got to drop that price.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
We're not going to give you more money than we should. And then number 4, it ensures that you pay the right amount for property taxes. So the government's happy. So basically government, banks, they're all interested in making sure that you pay what a home is worth. And a licensed appraiser is designed to do just that. As a kid, this was literally one of my favorite comic books. I was totally entranced by Spawn. And I own all of them 1 through 12. Turns out that when I paid $13 for number 1 all the way back then, that today in mint condition, this is worth over $700. But I'm not determining that it's worth $700. There's comic book experts that basically say, if you own that comic book that came out that year in that condition, ultimately, this is the value of it. In other words, it's a third-party vendor that ultimately decides that. Now, let me ask you, what does an appraisal cost? Well, I got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that an appraisal usually costs $300, $400, $500, $600. If it's a really expensive house, it can cost over $1,000 or $2,000. So if you were thinking of buying a property, you would not want to use an appraisal to determine its value. You'd just be writing checks left and right just to find out a magic number of what it might be worth.
And that's a magic number.
There is a simpler way. In fact, at the end of this video, I'm going to teach you how to get free appraisals on literally as many properties you want. If you've ever been curious, Kris, I'm looking at a deal, I want to know what it's worth, and should I pay for an appraisal, $500? I'm gonna show you the freeway at the end of this video. Now, an appraisal might tell you what something is worth, but it doesn't exactly reveal all the details of the condition of the property. And that's where this word comes in, inspection. An inspection is designed to answer this question. How do you know what condition the property is in? That's actually really important. Think about this comic book for a moment. I purchased this for $4 when I was a teenager. Today, in mint condition, meaning the best condition, it's worth $20. It's gone up in value, unless it has a poor condition. For example, this one has a bump right here. It actually has a bend and some creases. And if you turn the page, do you see the light dog ear? All of that has actually brought the value down because it's just not in as good of a condition. So why should you care what condition a house is in? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, if there's some hidden problems with the house, an inspector's job is to find those problems, and you might want to ask for more of a discount if you're going to have to fork out some money just after buying the house to make sure it's in the condition that you expect it to be in. Check this house out, right? It's a mansion. It looks gorgeous, like beautiful in every single room. So an appraiser would walk through this and say, wow, tip top, here's the value of this house. However, an inspection might reveal something different. For example, did you know that if there's a leaky roof on a house like that, it might cost you $100,000 to fix or replace that roof? Or what if the furnace is old? An HVAC system in a house that large, it could cost you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to fix. If there are leaky pipes, what happens if it's rusted out, burst, there's water damage, the subflooring's rotted? Termites, hugely expensive to fix. And of course, what if the house has a foundation problem? Like, what if a part of the foundation has settled and the house is literally like,
as you can see, it just fell over.
When I bought my very first house, I got an appraisal. And it told me that I had all this equity because I got a good price on it and I was buying it very far below that appraised value. However, I did not get an inspection and I regret it because there was a massive problem with the house that the inspector would have found and I didn't. This very first house I bought, what I loved about it, had this basement apartment. I rented it out and it was bringing in $550 a month. But in the first 30 days of owning the house, the toilet backed up and poop literally started like spilling out all over the floor. My tenants came up, they were panicked, they were worried, and I'm like, let's call Roto-Rooter. So I called a company, they basically, shoved something down the drain and then it flushed. 2 weeks later, it overflowed again. I decided that I needed to find out what was wrong with this house. So I ordered a company to come in and they dropped a camera down there and they said, Kris, 50 feet out from the house, the sewer line should just keep on going down into the street sewer, but doesn't. Underground, it actually has this bump. They call it a belly in the sewer line. And I had to pay for a licensed and bonded contractor to tear up the road, tear up the ground, tear up the sidewalk, and fix that pipe. And for a poor college kid, I want you to know something. That was expensive. It cost me $7,000 to fix that problem, and an inspection could have revealed that. So let me break it down very simple for you. An inspection is a thorough examination of a home to determine its actual present condition. And an inspector will literally go through a house and find every problem possible. In fact, that's what I really think an inspector's job is. They look at everything and they're looking for every possible problem. Because guess what? If you're looking at buying this house that's under contract, wouldn't you want to know every single problem with it? Here's a couple of reasons why you might want to know. Number one, it can help you protect your investment and reduce any potential risk. It will help you determine whether you should buy the home or literally let it back out to the market and say, this has got some problems I don't want to deal with. Or it can help you feel safe and comfortable that, you know what? I've had an inspector go through this. Now I know everything about this property and I feel a lot better about my choice. It can also provide a better understanding of your home's condition. You'll learn more about the intricacies of your home, tiny details, things like, are you missing like a little wall cover plate? Is there a problem with the lighting fixture? Does the door squeak? They can be super meticulous. Additionally, if you're building your home, it'll ensure that proper construction was completed, and it can provide you with leverage when negotiating with the seller. It's pretty typical that if you get an inspection and there are some unknown problems, that you can go back to the person selling the home and say, I need a better deal, or I need you to fix those things before I buy this house. check out this comic book. This Green Lantern number 76 in mint condition, worth over $32,000. But you see the spine here? Someone had fun reading this way too much. And because they've opened and closed it because of how worn it is, maybe at best, it's worth only a couple $1,000s. Just like in real estate, if you get an inspection and you find some problems with the property, that's leverage for me to go back to the seller and say, I need a better deal or I need you to fix those things. All right, so what does an inspection cost? Well, an inspection can cost $300, $400, sometimes $500. And you might be thinking, Kris, if I spend that money, I'm going to be out of pocket. Which is why before you ever do an inspection, there's something you should do first. You versus the inspector, right? I want the inspector to come in if this property is under contract and I know I want to buy it. But before you do that, you should just walk through the house. And I'm going to tell you right now, you don't have to be an inspector. You don't have to be a professional to just open your eyes and just look and observe, right? You're going to see natural problems. Are there cracks in the foundation? Do you see problems with the drywall where maybe there was a roof leak? There's so much you can observe with just your eyes. Years ago, I was buying a whole bunch of out-of-state properties and I was walking through this one house and I was looking at the condition of the cabinets and I was looking around and checking things out, and I had no idea that on the ground right in front of me was a dead cat. Oh my gosh. I did not see that. Check that out. Oh my gosh. Oh, it was the most disgusting thing, and literally I was standing right in front of it before I actually noticed it. It's amazing what you can observe if you just use your eyes. Now, after you've done your walkthrough and after you've had an inspection, there are still 2 more things that you can do to make sure that you keep yourself protected even after buying the property. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show you exactly how you do that. So let's summarize these 2. The difference between an appraisal and an inspection. An appraisal is bank mandated. If you want money from the bank, they're going to say you have to get an appraisal, and they're going to base it on the value of other homes in the neighborhood and ultimately tell you what they believe it's worth. An inspection, however, this is a part of buyer's due diligence. When you get under contract to buy a home in the next 30 days and you've locked it down, which means it's yours to buy as long as you can follow through, there's a period of time called due diligence. And that's where you're basically doing your research and saying, am I sure I want to buy this? And inspection is a very important part of due diligence so that you can renegotiate price or ask the seller to do something different if you found something really wrong with the property. Million Acres came out with a great article talking about the similarities between appraisals and inspections because frankly, a lot of people get it mixed up. Here are the main similarities. Both involve a professional conducting of a physical assessment of the property. Both typically occur shortly after a purchase contract is executed. Both are generally meant to protect the buyer and not the seller. The buyer generally pays for both of these, although the appraisal might be ordered and paid for by the lender and included in the lender fee. And finally, both result in reports that can potentially be used by the buyer to modify the contract to get it just right. But also make sure you're aware of the differences between appraisals and inspections. Appraisals take the property's condition into account, but they also consider the location, a lot of its characteristics, and the overall area of the real estate market that it's in. Just like a comic book, this one has a holographic image on the front, this one is older, who printed it, what condition, how thick is the paper. An appraisal also is conducted relatively quickly, and it's there to serve the lender because the lender wants to be protected if they're going to give you money. An inspection is different. It focuses exclusively on the property itself or components of the property. Inspections are a lot more thorough and they generally take several hours to perform, and they're mainly there to serve you, the buyer, not the bank. Now, I did promise you a couple of free bonuses, including this free appraisal. Well, that actually comes straight out of this book, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth. Notice it is in mint condition, and I put this in the mail for free just for you. And from it, here's what you learn. You learn that you can get a free appraisal called by a different name. It's called a CMA, or a comparable market analysis. And this comes straight out of the book. This is a sample property that I'm interested in buying. It's listed for $179,000. And I actually want to know, What is this property actually worth? I don't want to pay $350 for an appraisal. Is there a free way? Yeah, I actually teach you right in this book, and I'm going to give it to you right now. This one-page listing right from the MLS gives me a lot of information. It tells me that it's been 7 days on the market. It gives me its address. It tells me that it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home built in 1954. I could read and see other information, but ultimately I want to know one thing. Is it worth $179,000? Is it worth less? Is it worth more? The realtor that is helping you consider buying this house can produce this CMA. What they're going to do is they're going to go through and say, what are all of the similar homes that have sold recently in that area? And you would look and say, oh, here's an address, here's an address, and here's an address that are all within half a mile, 5 blocks. And guess what? I see the price they sold for, how long they were on the market. I can see the size of the lot. I can see bedrooms and bathrooms. And as a result, some of these are not similar, some of them are. These 3 are most similar, and I just hit one button and I get this report. It's called a CMA report for blank. This was for me because I bought this house. Now, here's the home that I'm looking at buying with all of its information, with its address, bedrooms, bathrooms, full and half baths, and square footage. And then it takes the 3 properties I selected for comparison, comparable market analysis, and it says, well, if we tried to make all of these things equal, based on what these 3 homes sold for, we think this home is actually worth $225,000. Now, wait a second. This is a home that is listed for $179,000. This is saying it might be worth $45,000 more. Any realtor can generate that report for you, but I do want you to get a free copy of the book and actually read my do's and don'ts of how to work with a realtor to make sure they don't screw you over so that they generate this report the perfect way for you. I also promised to share with you 2 additional measures to keep yourself safe and protected when buying a property. This comes straight from this book. It says you protect yourself from hidden dangers by doing 2 things. Number 1, seller disclosures. When a seller lists a property, they have to fill out this 7-page report telling you that for the life that they lived in this home, any possible problems there might be with it. Now that's an important document for me because let's say that 2 years earlier a pipe burst and they paid the insurance company to come in and fix it, or let's say that they had the roof replaced. I want to basically take my inspection report and I'm going to compare it to the seller disclosures. And by the way, if there's history on this property, and the seller does not disclose or tell you about it, they could literally get a lawsuit from you down the road. So by law, they have to honestly tell you everything they know about this property. This is an added measure of protection.
I don't need protection. Protection for them.
And the final measure of protection is to make sure you get proper property insurance. If you live in a flood zone, make sure that property is insured for a flood. If you live in Florida and there might be a tornado, make sure you have tornado insurance. If you're in an area that has a lot of brush fires, make sure you have adequate fire insurance. So you got to ask yourself, in the area that I live in, are there hailstorms? Is it cold winters where pipes break? And as long as you make sure that your insurance company is not picked based on who's cheapest, but rather who is cheapest, but also the most thorough in providing proper coverage, that will also keep you super safe. All right, so I'm laying a choice before you. The $32,000 comic book or this book for free. This book can make you millions of dollars. This thing actually is kind of ripped up, torn up. It's not worth $32,000. Click the link below. Get this book. This knowledge is powerful. It's transformational. It's how I became financially free in just 4 years. And if you want the same thing, get this book for free, read it, and start implementing it right away. Pretty sure that decreased its value.
It's okay, it's the Amazing Spider-Man.
Dang it. He was supposed to get really pissed.